How's it going, guys? It's Adam here, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about the iPad 2 in 2024. It's crazy, guys. It's been almost 13 years since this came out, which is absolutely insane to me because I remember when this was the top of the line iPad, and I use this basically every single day. So it's just kind of insane to me that this is over 13 years old. But today, yeah, we're going to be doing a review of this iPad 2. And before we get started, make sure you guys subscribe. We are doing crazy with the amount of views and subscribers and everything like that. So just keep on subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me. Anyways, let's get started with this video. So, the iPad 2 was released back in 2011, and at the time, the original iPad came out, and it was pretty popular. People felt a little bit mixed about the product, and that kind of still holds true about the iPad 2 when it did come out. So, yeah, people still didn't really feel too well about the iPad series because it was essentially a bigger version of just an iPhone. It didn't really have that much to offer. However, the iPad 2 was definitely a convincing iPad. It had many things going for it, including now a camera on the front and the back, which was really helpful for stuff like FaceTime calls, which just came out when this iPad came out, and as well as other features that would take use of those cameras. It also had a few other things, such as a much stronger chipset, as well as a little bit more RAM. So, in this iPad 2, we have 512 megabytes of RAM and an Apple A5 chip. And so, with that performance, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but the performance was definitely an upgrade over the original iPad. Now, let's just first talk about this display and the design. Now, I do have a case over this, and honestly, I couldn't take out the case. It's literally impossible. I don't know why. Whatever case I got, this is just absolutely impossible to get out. So as a result, I do have it on, but what I will say is that this thing is an absolute tank, if you couldn't tell. It's extremely thick, even without a case, and it's just insane how heavy this is. I mean, it is absolutely insane. It's, I think, several pounds, and you can definitely tell. Now, when you compare other iPads, such as the newest iPad 10th generation, which is 8 more generations than this, as you can tell, this is much more slimmer and a much better design. I just got this recently, by the way. A full review will be coming out soon, or maybe it already did come out. I don't know. Make sure to check my channel to see if this review for this iPad came out. But anyways, let's talk more about this iPad 2. And so this display, let's talk about this display. This is a 9.7-inch display with a resolution of 768 by 1024 pixels, which means a couple of things. It is not Retina, that is for sure. It is not Retina, and you can definitely tell. That is because you can totally see the pixels, which is kind of to be expected for a 13-year-old tablet, so I guess it kind of does make sense. But honestly, it's not good for 2024 standards. It wasn't even good for, I mean, like even 5 years ago. This display has not been good for a while. What I will say is that the brightness is okay, and even though you probably wouldn't take this into full sunlight, it can be pretty good in shaded areas, and it will definitely do well enough for the indoor areas that you might be using this iPad in, which is probably going to be most scenarios. So overall, this display, in terms of its brightness, is fine. In terms of its resolution, it's not. So yeah, that's one thing I'll definitely say. When you compare it to the newer iPads, the resolution and the brightness is way better. However, it isn't, as expensive as those iPads. This is going for around, $40 to $50. So yeah, that is the display. Let's talk about those cameras. Now, this is one of the biggest upgrades for the iPad 2 at the time. This is not an impressive upgrade, what I will say, just because even though, yes, they did add cameras, I wouldn't even really consider them cameras. They're more like unusable pieces of technology that happen to be cameras. We have a 0.7 megapixel camera on the back. That is the main camera. On the back, we have a 0.7 megapixel camera. Let's see if that'll focus right there. There we go. And yeah, you can kind of tell how small that sensor is. Let's zoom all the way in and you can tell that is an absolutely tiny sensor. And that kind of makes sense because, yeah, it is only 0.7 megapixels. But you know what's even smaller? This front-facing camera. It's 0.3 megapixels. And even if we zoom in, you can barely even see the camera. Like, it's essentially non-existent. Well, here's a few main camera samples. And the first thing that you'll notice is that this is just absolutely terrible. Now, maybe from afar, it's okay, but when you actually go in, there's essentially no detail. It's actually kind of hilarious. I mean, look at that. You can't even see any kind of detail. There is an extremely high amount of noise. I mean, it's just insane, the amount of noise that is present inside of this camera. And the colors are extremely washed out. It is extremely overexposed in this photo, as you can tell by this. This is not a white building. This is more like yellow. And you cannot tell that in this photo because of how overexposed this camera is. What I will say is that maybe some of the colors occasionally can be okay. Obviously, you can tell that this is blue and this is a sky, so that's something at least. But what I will say is, yeah, this is a camera that you probably don't want to use except for the most extreme cases. And I mean extreme because this thing is really not great. If you don't have a phone or if you don't have anything like that, and if you're thinking, okay, this will replace my iPhone camera, hell no, this will not replace your iPhone camera at all. This is a terrible camera. It's kind of hilarious. One of the worst I've ever seen. The only thing that comes close to it, or is actually identical to it, is the iPod Touch 4th generation, I'm pretty sure, and that is just as bad as this. So, it's because the exact same camera sensors. So, let's look at one more photo right here for the main camera, and as you can tell, wow, this is extremely underexposed right here. So if you have a different kind of sunlight condition where maybe there isn't as much of exposure, then it'll extremely underexpose it, and now you can barely even see that house. You can see the sky, so that's something, but you can't really see that this is a roof right here, or you can't really see even much of that grass over there besides the part that's slightly lit. But yeah, overall, this is just not a good main camera. Okay, so this is the selfie camera right here. Let's take a photo. All right, here we go. This is actually hilarious how bad this is. Now, this, to be granted, is not in the best condition lighting, but even then, I can guarantee you that this will be some of the worst camera quality you have ever seen on a front camera or any camera. This is just absolutely horrendous. This should really just go back into whatever century this was in, 18th, 19th, whatever. Yeah, there is no detail here. There is an extreme amount of noise. I don't know if you can tell right there, but even from afar, there is, yeah, no detail and bad exposure and a lot of blurriness. I wasn't even shaking the camera that much. I mean, I was just holding it up to take a photo, basically almost like a still photo, and it is this bad. It's kind of hilarious. Yeah, it's just really bad. So, let's talk about something else, and that is this performance. So, yeah, like I said before, this is the Apple A5 chip with 512 megabytes of RAM. And what I would say about this is that this is absolutely horrendous. And what I would say is that back in the day when this actually was released, this was so speedy. I mean, it was insane. But nowadays, 13 years later, nope. But what I would say is that it is better than a lot of Kindle Fire tablets. It's a lot better than most Android tablets from 13 years ago, so that's something about that. So yeah, this had 512 megabytes of RAM, and you can tell basically everything closes out right when you exit from it. So if you try to go back into an app, let's just say I want to go into the settings app. Now it probably won't. I don't know if it will, but look how long this takes to load. So that's an example right there. But let's try to go back into it and see if it saved my stuff. Nope, it had to actually reload, as you can tell there. So yeah, it basically doesn't save anything, and that is partially Apple's fault because they accidentally, well, on purpose, but I think they kind of realized it was an accident or a huge mistake to update to iOS 9.3.5, and yeah, huge mistake on their part. They could have kept it on iOS 8. It was still pretty slow, but it wasn't as slow as iOS 9. Yeah, definitely would say that that was a huge mistake on their part. And I will guarantee you, for another thing about this iPad, is that you cannot play games at all. I mean, there's a few games, you know, maybe that you can play. I mean, Geometry Dash, I mean, is a extremely simple 2D game. So let's try this out right now. Let's do a little bit of a gaming test here. So yeah, okay, let's check the load time. So, yeah, okay. So we're loading in. You can see, oh, yeah, you can see a little bit of lag right there. Let's try Stereo Madness. Never played it on here because why would I want? Oh, so you can see it's essentially impossible to play, especially when you first start it. Now, what I would say is that it actually does get a little bit better once you start playing some games. So yeah, 2D games will technically play, and will play at a somewhat inconsistent frame rate. Now, this is one of the most you know, simple Geometry Dash levels, and so as a result they don't need to load too much in, at least for this one, but there will be some lag for sure. But you know what I will say, Geometry Dash Lite or Geometry Dash is technically playable on the iPad 2, but basically everything else, any 3D games, will essentially be unplayable. Anyways, yeah, so that is the gaming test, and as you can see how much lag there was when I tried to close that out. Try to close that out there. Let's try to go back into the settings right there. Actually, it did stay in that RAM. So that's pretty good. Not too bad. Let's check to see if Photos is still. Okay, Photos is still in. Let's check to see if Camera. I believe that either was a reload or I couldn't really tell. Let's try Battery Life. Okay, battery life is still... Okay, so there's a few things... Oh. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. You can see how long it takes to exit an app by that example right there. Overall, the performance on this is very weak. However, it's not technically usable. It's really just not usable. Let's talk about one good thing about this iPad, though, and I will say that it's the battery life. Now, this has a lot of wear on it in terms of the battery life. I think 20 or 30% has been degraded from this. However, even by that standard, this is very, very good with battery life. Whatever you're doing on this, which is probably not too much, but whatever you're doing on this is extremely good in terms of the battery life. I mean, I've left this on standby, I think, for a few months at least, and it's still going, so it's you know, that's not too bad. And overall, this is it's a pretty good tablet in terms of battery life. In terms of everything else, not so much, but in terms of battery life, it's pretty good. So, in conclusion, for this $50 to $40 price range, is this iPad worth it? And I would say absolutely not. You at least need something that's better than this, because this is heavy. It's impossible to use. Things crash all of the time. The only games that you will play will be basic 2D games. The camera is hilariously bad. What I would recommend is to at least upgrade to something like an iPad Air 2, or something a little bit better than that. The iPad Air 2, for example, even though I wouldn't personally recommend it, it is definitely better than this and is definitely usable. It's about, you know, $100, I would say, and for only, yeah, $50 more, you're getting a much better camera, much better performance. You'll actually be able to play 3D titles, not too well, but you will be able to play them. And yeah, basically everything is better on that. And what I would say, if you're looking for something that is actually going to be usable for the next several years, I would recommend the latest iPad that I have. That I actually just recently got, the iPad 10th generation right here. This is actually a really good iPad, and I am definitely, even though I haven't recorded the review right now. It already might be out. So yeah, definitely recommend this. Yeah, so this is a very good iPad, especially compared to this. So anyways, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like I said. And anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video. Peace.